Hi, I'm Claire, and I'm a rising junior at Castleya School, and this is my balancing robot. So since the last milestone video, I've added remote control here with the PS3 controller, and I've also added an innermost loop to try and compensate for differences in the motors. So as you probably could have seen in the last video, the robot was sort of turning because the same PWM command would act differently on the two motors. So I've added an innermost PID loop that takes a motor speed and converts it to a motor PWM command. So that will say, okay, if there's some discrepancy in the speed between the two wheels, I'm going to try and correct for that. I've also switched out my Arduino. It used to be an Uno, and I switched it out for a Dewey because to add remote control abilities, I had to add this USB host shield, but it was too large it took up too many pins on my Uno, and I really needed those pins to read the encoders and send values to the motors, etc., etc. So I switched to the larger and more powerful Dewey, which meant that I had to port a sensor library onto the Dewey. I actually had to get outside help for that because I really didn't know how deep down Arduino worked, but I learned a lot about I2C communication. Turns out one of the things that we needed to change was that we didn't need to disable the internal pull-ups in the board because this board already runs on 3.3 volts, which is what my sensors ran on, so I didn't need to disable those internal pull-up resistors. So some issues I've faced getting to this milestone is that my robot is not consistent. It's very touchy to battery voltage, to print lines in my code, and because I have those three nested PID loops, if one constant isn't tuned correctly, the whole thing will sort of crash, basically. It will become unstable. So you can see my robot is relatively stable right now. It is turning a bit, which means that the innermost loop needs to be a little more powerful. But if I give it a little push, it'll recover. If I give it a larger push, it will start to oscillate and the oscillations will become unstable. So to activate remote control, I hit the PS3 button on this guy. It'll start to blink, and once it selects 1, that means we are ready to go. So I can ask it to move forward. You can see it's starting to oscillate. I can't go much faster than that, otherwise it will become unstable. And it's also hitting a little crease in the tube. I can ask it to go backwards, and it will do so. And then my turning capabilities aren't quite there yet. I think it's because of my control architecture, but it will turn, and then it will return to its original heading, which is not what I want. I would like it to turn and stay, but it doesn't. So that is definitely a next step. I'd like to make my robot more robust as a whole, both mechanically. My motor mount is bent, so I am holding it together with zip ties, which isn't very good. The IMU is mounted sort of only on one side, so it has the potential to jitter. There are wires all over the place, which can be an issue sometimes when I'm bringing my robot to places, and sometimes the encoder wires will fall out and the robot will start to go a little crazy. Apart from that, I'd also like to try a lot of different control structures. So right now I have my 3 PID loops, which is fairly complicated. They're all very reliant on each other, which isn't very good, especially when they're not well tuned. So I'm sure there are a lot of other control structures I could try, and that would be pretty interesting to see which one works best with this particular setup. There are a lot of things I could add onto this balancing robot once it is balancing really well. I mean, I could add voice control, I could add image recognitions for it to do certain tasks. I could add GPS navigation. There are a lot of things. It's just a base where I can build off of, so that's really exciting. I think from this project, I've learned, technically I've learned a lot about all of these components. I've never worked with Arduinos before, never worked with jumper cables before, PS3 controllers. Procedural programming was a first as well, so that was pretty interesting. Non-technically, I've learned to have no regrets, because I changed a lot of things, and each time I would sort of be hesitant to change, but it's better to sort of change quickly and see that it's not working. Whoa. See, this is an unstable robot. To change quickly and to see that it's not working and to be able to revert back instead of sitting there and saying, oh, should I change or not? So it's basically making quick changes, assessing it, and going back. Not being afraid to just jump and try new things. Yeah, so it's been a good experience, and I'm excited to get this robot working really well.